Hey everyone. Okay, so the season finale, it's over. It's over. And like I'm still in like shock and I don't know what to do with myself because we won't be doing this next week and that'll just be weird. And I just don't know. It's actually raining and cold in where I live for like the first time in a very long time. So I'm actually kind of cozy. But dog, what are you doing? Yeah, so normally I would start off by being like, oh, it was an amazing episode. Let me just, react to these promos and these things really quick. But we cannot do that anymore because it's over. And yeah. Okay, so yeah, before I get started, instead of doing my reactions, I just wanted to quickly discuss, because I'm not going to rant because that will be a very long video, about all the booktube hate on the show. Not like me hating, but like the you know what I'm talking about. If you've been on Tumblr, if you know. But yeah, I keep seeing, I'm not gonna rant a whole bunch now. And I can very much rant for a very long time, but we're not going to do that because that's not what this video is. So I'm going to just try and keep it short and say one thing. I know a lot of people have been very offended and very hurt by all the things that these people have been saying. And I am very sorry that you feel that way, because you should not have to feel that way for something that you enjoy, and that makes me very sad. And so I know a lot of people are trying to defend them by, oh, it's just their opinion. It's just, what, if you don't like it, then stop watching. Okay, first of all, if you don't like the show, then stop watching it. Take your own advice. But I'm just going to say that an opinion, is fine. An opinion is fine. An opinion stops being an opinion when it hurts people. An opinion stops being an opinion when it offends people. It stops being an opinion when you are making other people feel bad when you should not be. All right? There's another term for that, and it's called hate speech. Just because you're allowed to say something doesn't mean that you should. So when you are a very popular booktuber with very many views, and I say, oh, you're just jealous because you don't, I'm not jealous because of the views or the subscribers. I'm honestly not. The only reason, one of the main reasons why I would get so upset is because I'm not as much now because the show has gotten renewed, but before I would get really annoyed because, like, if the directors, producers, actors, even if they wanted to go out to YouTube or even Instagram or anything, and try and find some feedback for the show, those are the videos that they're gonna see. The ones with the many, many views, and those are usually the ones that are the most negative and most hateful and most just, so if they were to look up, for any kind of feedback, that's what they would find. And that does not reflect the rest of the fandom. Yeah, I'm not going to continue on. If any of you want to continue on, you can comment down below. But I wanted to keep that short. But yeah, an opinion stops being an opinion when you hurt people, okay? It's not, there's a certain line that you don't cross when it comes to your opinion. And y'all need to learn how to stay on your side. Stay in your lane, alright? Hopefully you've learned from all of this. Just, if you, like, y'all obviously don't like the show, so stop watching it. It's not very hard, okay? It's just because it's based off of one of your favorite, book series, doesn't mean that you have to continue watching it, okay? But yeah, I think I'm going to end my mini rant there. That's just the top thing that I wanted to say, because, yeah, I do not like that people are seriously feeling bad because of what these other people are saying, and it really irritates me because I do not want you to feel bad for enjoying something, and for the haters, because that's all they are. So hopefully all you haters, especially the big booktubers who make videos who get thousands of views, I'm glad that you're getting, paid for all of that. But yeah, just please stop and let the rest of us enjoy it, and just find something else to hate on next year when the season comes back, because you're really very not appreciated here. So adios. Alrighty then, so I'm just going to go ahead and continue with my review. Alright, so we start off with Jace and Clary, and Clary is showing Jace that the box with like the booties and all that stuff in it. Jace is just like going on about how like just being Jace, and I'm like, you self-loathing Will Herondale type boy, like, stop it. So like that's that scene with the two of them, and then after that is with Alec, and he's talking to his parents, and he's like, oh, he's talking to Maris, and she's like ignoring him, and so Robert comes over, and he's like, Alec is like, oh, about the fact that Magnus is a guy, because Maris is like, how you embarrassed us. And so I was surprised to hear, and she's like, the fact that he's a guy is the least of my worries. And she's like, it's because it's Magnus Bane. And I'm like, huh, well, at least they're not homophobic. I didn't mention this last time, but Robert, how he was more accepting in the last episode. I mean, I guess he was like, well, okay, like he kind of just did that. And how, like, in the books, how Alec is more afraid, or not afraid, but like about his dad. It was very surprising and nice in the show that Robert was this way, because in the books it didn't really make sense that Robert would be so homophobic like that towards his son and Magnus in the beginning after everything with Michael. So I like that they changed that, and how they're not like, you know, homophobic in that way, and how they're just mad because it's Magnus Bane, and how he's like, he has a history and all that stuff. So that's why they're mad, not because it's a guy. One thing that I noticed in this episode, Magnus, when he was alone with Alec, and that one scene, and how he's more himself kind of around Alec, and I thought that was really nice, because everything until now, he's just been like over the top and dramatic and like trying to get Alec's attention and like flirting and this, and so now Magnus is a little bit down, low key a little bit, and he's just like, oh, well, how did it go, and da-da-da. He's not like, you know, just super Magnus-y. So they're like, oh yeah, about that first date, and I'm super duper excited to see that first date. I need it in the show. I need it, because I know that there's one in the Bane Chronicles, but I don't think they're allowed to use that stuff yet, because they only have the rights to the other books and not the short stories. So they kind of have to come up with their own first dates, and I'm sure it'll be amazing. Okay, and then after that, thank goodness, Lydia is still alive. Like, I was so scared that they were gonna kill her off, but she's good. They go in there and Magnus is like, she's alive, and I was just like, oh my god. And then that's the last that we see of Lydia in the entire episode, so she's like probably with the Silent Brothers, like getting treated or something. But yeah, that's the last we see of Lydia, so we're not gonna see her again until next season, hopefully. I hope she comes back. I love Lydia. So the squad is all around Izzy and looking at the computer, and so they're trying to find Hodge or something, because that's Lydia was like, oh, Hodge. And so Izzy is still in denial. She's like, no. And then Jace tries to say something about Maris and Robert. I'm like, no. Now Jace is going on about how they're not my parents and this and that. I'm like, really, dude? Really? So they were all surprised with Hodge when they saw him, and it was really sneaky with the whole Forsaken attack, because that's how Valentine got the ring in, and so that wasn't just like some random attack on the Institute. It was for a purpose. So I was rereading the synopsis, the plot for City of Ashes and City of Glass last night, and there is a Forsaken attack on the Institute, but it's not until City of Glass, I think, and then that's when they all like portal to Idris. And so yeah. Okay, and so after that, after they're all like all shocked because of Hodge and like the betrayal, we cut to that scene with Valentine on the boat. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, boat? Because as we all know, the boat at the end of City of Ashes, you know, the kaboom, the big boat scene and then with like Jason Simon and then all that stuff. So I bet they're still gonna do that. I really, really feel like they're still going to do that, because boat. And so Hodge gives Valentine the cup, and Valentine, it was really funny because he puts it into that, like, it was a giant like fish tank of blood, and I couldn't tell what it looked like at first. I'm like, that looks like Kool-Aid. It wasn't like thick enough to look like blood, but apparently that's what it was. And so he puts the cup in there, and then it starts like boiling, and then it like turns to a pea color, and then he gives it to the one dude, and then like he drinks it, and then he like falls to the ground, and I'm like, oh my god, angels twice descending, flashbacks. And then yeah, and then the guy comes up and Valentine's like, no, he's a shadow hunter. And then he gives him a blade. And I was like, I mentioned this in my like reaction. I'm like, I love how he just has like so many blades just readily available. Like Oprah, like, you get a blade, you get a blade. Yeah, that was that scene. And so then Valentine tells Hodge, he's like, oh yeah, I told you I'd get you out. Doesn't mean I'm gonna like let you back into my ranks or something. So Hodge is like, what the heck, man? So then we come back to the Institute, and Jace and Alec are like getting ready, and then we get the shot with Alec with the blade or whatever. And I love how the weapons look. I love how the weapons look so much. It was so funny. It was so funny because what's it called? Alec is like, oh, do you want me to call Magnus for help? And Jace is like, oh, stop thinking with your stele. And I'm just like, that was a dick joke. Oh, that was so funny. I need Jace to be around more because of his jokes. He's just, I love him so much. Okay, and then Jace is like, oh no, there's better ways to track. And so they call Luke, and then Luke is like, he went right past me, Jace. Like, it's like, no, don't blame yourself. Please, Luke, you're fine. Like, there was no way anybody would have known. Please do not blame yourself, you beautiful man. And so then right after that, I think it was back with, Valentine, and he says something about, oh, get Jonathan and Clarissa, and so every time he says, I'm just like, ugh. Stop calling them by their names that they're not called by, stop. We come back, and Izzy, I noticed that she's kind of wearing something that looks, she's wearing like pants and her huge heels. I love it when she wears them. And like this, it wasn't a crop top, but it like came down to her waist kind of, and it was like tight fitted, and it all looked like Izzy's clothes. And so I was really happy about that because, you know, how back with Alec was talking to his parents, and he's like, oh yeah, that, you know, you're just gonna have to get used to it. He's standing up to his parents. He's standing up for what he believes in, and like himself and his own relationship. And so Izzy, by dressing this way, it was kind of her own way. The both of the siblings were kind of like not rebelling against their parents, but they're just, you know, reverting back to their selves. And so by Izzy wearing those clothes, it was like a kind of it was like a subtle thing for me, where she, just like her brother, were kind of like, oh, that we're not going to follow mom and dad's rules because, you know, obviously they're not working, so we're just gonna go back to what we were doing. And so I really liked that she was wearing her old clothes and she looked like herself again, and I loved it. Oh my goodness. And then that fight scene with Jace and Hodge, and so they're fighting, and Hodge is like, you're just like your father, and I'm like, hey now, no. And so then, oh my goodness. Okay, and then I remembered when they were training like months ago. Yeah. When they were training months ago, and they did that flippy flip, and then Jace, if this was, I don't think this is not in the books. Jace cuts off Hodge's hand. Just, whoa. Encore was really good at like acting pain, because when he screamed, I was just like, oh my goodness, I was cringing. But yeah, I don't think that was in the books, and well, because of the whole ring thing, and so that's why he does it. That was crazy. And so now Hodge is gonna be without a hand. But yeah, fight scenes like always tend to get better and better with every like season or even episode. So can you imagine like the Dark War, like when that happens, like, oh my goodness. Okay, so the next it's back with Jason Hodge, and so I think I've said it before and I'll say it again. Dom plays like sadness and anger so well. I absolutely love it. Like, I can feel his anger through the screen, like his face, and like just everything that he does is so good. And I just, it's so Jace, and I love it. So Jace was totally gonna kill Hodge. He was totally gonna kill Hodge. And so, like I said, I was like rereading the plots for the other books. And so, spoiler alert for like City of Glass, Sebastian, we all know Sebastian, he's the one that kills Hodge. Because it was a whole thing with like Simon was in the jail or something, and then so they come, and then Sebastian kills Hodge as he's playing that like Samuel guy or something. I don't know. I need to reread these books. But yeah, Jace was totally gonna kill Hodge, but as he was like gonna put his blade in him, Alec comes and like pushes him out of the way. So then Jace is again was like, they're not my parents, Alec. And he's like, really? You've said it yourself. They raised you. Like, don't say that, Jace. Come on now. Like, they might not be the best, but they still raised you, and they still loved you like their own. And so, after that, I thought it was really funny. Jace just picked up Hodge's like severed hand, just nothing, and then he just tossed it aside and then put the ring on. I'm like, ew. So then we come back to the hotel do more, and that's because in the very end of the last episode is when Magnus was like, oh yeah, Camille has the book or something, and so they have to go talk to Camille so they can get the book. So they go, and Simon is talking to Raphael and so they sneak in to talk to Camille because Raphael said no. And so they sneak in by putting Clary in that coffin to like go in there. And it didn't register at first that she was in the coffin. So I'm like, what is Simon doing? Yeah, so then before like we actually finish with that scene, we go back to that scene with Raphael and Izzy. And so they're talking, and Raphael is like, you know, something's not right here. And Izzy, she's like, oh yeah, we are. And I love her so much. And so then like she kind of uses her whip action and she takes it out. I love it when she uses the the whip. I need more of that in season 2 because it's amazing. And we're back to that scene with Camille and Clary and Simon, and they open the thing and she's like, she's dead, and he's like, well, yeah, she's a vampire. Just all of his like dead jokes. And he's like, oh yeah, some of us already are. And then the whole thing with the Book of the White, he's like, big like white book kind of explains itself. And like, oh god, all of Simon's lines, I absolutely love it. And it was so funny because Camille, when she like came out of the coffin, like with the sound effects and like how they did it, it actually scared me. I like jumped a little bit. So that was kind of funny. And oh, and then another thing, they're actually doing that thing with Camille and Simon with the sire bond. So we hadn't heard anything about that until now. And so a lot of people were like, so, you know, he's going to be sire to Camille. And yeah, so apparently they're actually doing that. So I don't know what that means, what they're going to do with that later on. I mean, maybe because she has him sign that contract later. So maybe that like lessens the bond. I don't know. I don't know. But yeah. So then, right, there was a scene, it was like before or after that with Alec and Luke. And so they're talking and they have Hodge like sitting against that concrete like wall and Jace is just standing over him. So Luke is over there and Alec goes over to walk with Luke and they're like, how's Jace? Da, 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 da. He's like, I've seen this before. And so they have that whole conversation. But besides that, I thought it was so funny because Luke and Isaiah and Matt are both like super, super tall and it's just absolutely fabulous. And so when they're in a scene together, just the two of them, they look like actually normal height. But I just thought that was so funny. I love it. I love their height. Yeah, anyway, so we come back to Camille, and one thing that I noticed, because you know how Camille talks, she talks very like, oh yeah, like, you know, she talks. So like, I was thinking as I was watching her like speaking, I'm like, you can tell like that why, or how like Magnus would have fallen for her, because you know how Magnus is, and so of course he would be attracted to somebody else that's kind of like that, and so it made it, well, to me anyways, it made it a little bit like clearer as to like why he had fallen for her in the first place, and so why he was so heartbroken, because she's so manipulative and she's so like, she uses people to the max and she doesn't care about anybody's feelings. And I just thought that was interesting. And then that whole Camille and Magnus interaction later on, oh, I love that scene so much. I come back and like Alec is talking to Jace on the phone. He's like trying to get him to stop, and Alec is like, you're not, you know, you're not Valentine, you're not a bad person. And Jace is like, yes I am. I'm like, stop it right now. Come back, it like was going back and forth, and so we have that parallel of Simon looking through that like edition cross sign looking thing in the door, like in the first time that the first episode that he was in there. And so I thought that was kind of funny, like in the different kinds of situations that he's in, like from that episode to now. Then okay, so they come out and then they're stopped by Raphael and his vampire squad, and so then they're like, oh yeah, you've broken our alliance or whatever, it's over. And so they're like going back and forth, and then Izzy comes and saves the day because Izzy is amazing. So she comes and saves the day, you know, light burning hand. And it was so funny. She's like, oh, silly vampire or something. I'm like, oh, silly vampire, tricks are for kids. No, that's not what he said. But she's like, oh, always underestimating Shadowhunters. And then she's like, adios. And I'm just like, I love it. And it was so funny because they did Emerald and Matt did a video or something where they were answering questions, and so the way that Matt said that, he's like, adios, but like, can you imagine in a Matt voice, like, and he said it like that, like, it was so funny. So side note, I think that was the last that we saw of Raphael. He did such a good job. He's such an amazing Raphael, and I absolutely adore him. I know people in the very beginning was like, he's not 14, like, David Castro is on point. He like is just so good. Okay, and then they're walking down that thing, and the Camille's like, oh yeah, I need you to sign a document for me. And I'm like, are you talking about a document? And yeah, so that's what I was thinking. I'm like, maybe that'll like lessen the bond or break the bond, since he's like doing so. I don't know, I have no idea. But yeah, Camille, she makes that deal with them, like, oh yeah, I'll give you the book if you sign this document for me. I'm like, you and you're manipulative. Oh my god. And then she's like, oh yeah, I know a guy. And so I knew it. I knew she was gonna say Magnus. Like, I knew it. And then the scene like directly after that, it's Magnus and her walking in his apartment, and I'm like, oh my goodness. This was honestly one of my favorite parts of the episode. We all know that Camille is bad. We all like hate her because she's so, like I said, she's so manipulative. She uses people. She doesn't care about anybody but herself. She will do whatever she can to get ahead, and she will do whatever she can to protect herself. And so, I mean, I don't like her because of that, and she hasn't shown, or even in the book, she didn't really show any like redeeming quality. So it's like, she's just a bad person. or a bad vampire. And so it was so funny how she's like, Magnus is like, oh, 138 years, but whatever. And so I'm like, really, 138 years, but I'm not counting. Everything about Magnus in this episode was just absolutely on point. His hair was on point, his makeup, his wardrobe, his like jewelry. Oh my goodness, I was jealous. I'm like, can I just get a full body picture of you, like 360, please? Can we just do that, because I need it? Okay, and so then we get to the part that was like the most talked about thing on Tumblr for whatever. And when Magnus and her are talking, and because like Simon and Clary in the bedroom talking about whatever, and so Camille is just messing with Magnus. He's like he's conjuring up the thing. Oh, that was a lovely hand shot. I really appreciated that. Magnus has wonderful hair. He has wonderful hands. Like but anyway, so she's like talking to him and they're whatever. And so I didn't notice this until the second time I watched it, but she's like sniffing and she's like, oh, angel blood. And so when she like turned Magnus around to kiss him, she did that for the only reason of Alec being there. That was the only reason she did that, because she knew he was coming and she knew that he was probably the one that Magnus was into. And so she just did that just to get under their skin. I'm like, really, Camille? Really? We all know that Magnus, he doesn't love her. He doesn't love her anymore. But if anything, he still, you know, feels a little bit of pain for how she betrayed him and how she like broke his heart, because he was talking about that with Ragnar in the last episode. And what's it called? So yeah, he obviously doesn't love her, but like I said, he still feels pain, or he still remembers the feeling of pain. And so that's why his face gets a little bit down whenever somebody would bring her up or whenever she would mention something, because I mean that's not gonna go, oh, bird. That's not gonna go away like even in 100 years for this warlock. He's still very sensitive, and she knows how to mess with his heart. So obviously, like, she would still have at least a little bit of an effect on him. And I really love that Alec wasn't mad, because I mean, why would he be? He knows that Magnus doesn't love her anymore. He knows what kind of a like person Camille is, and so I love that he was just angry at Camille because she was obviously doing something just to get to Alec. And so they even have that, I mean, I'll talk about it later with that whole conversation that they have. Oh, and then they mentioned the whole immortal thing. I'm like, stop mentioning this, or at least that's what I thought of when I first saw it, but like it made sense to me a little bit later, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Yeah, like I said, Alec was not angry at Magnus because obviously Camille kissed him, and or Camille kissed Magnus. So Alec was just annoyed and angry with Camille, like, stop messing with my man. Don't leave him alone. Okay, hi. So I don't know how this looks, and I apologize if this looks really weird and if I'm close to the camera, and it's really annoying for me because of my cameras, and I really need to invest in an actual camera because, ugh. But anyways, okay, so Harry's acting after that point. Harry's acting was so on point in that scene, and I was laughing so hard because that little thing that Magnus had on his finger, I'm like, wow, I want that because that looks amazing. And it was so funny when Izzy was like talking to him and something about the lip lock, and he's like, and I thought that was so funny. And then when he was like to Alec, and he was like, I love that so much. And then right after that, there's all the scenes with like John Core or Hodge, and he sounded like genuinely scared when Jace was like manhandling him in front of in that like in front of the boat and all that. And so I really enjoyed John Core's acting in this episode. And then also how everybody, they took the van to Camille's place. And it was so funny to me how when Alec walked in and he's like, wow, you've got a lot of books. And I'm just like, that sounds like what people say when they walk into my room. I feel like that would be a really funny like reaction gif. Like somebody should like gif that and then be like, oh yeah, when somebody walks into my room. That would be so me. So yeah, they continue going into her library, and so Magnus and Alec like go off somewhere, and I'm like, where are you guys going? And so I want to know like what they were doing in that back room because I just am curious. Yeah, so then they go off, and so Simon and Clary are looking for the book, and so they find that cookbook, and it turns out to be the one that Jocelyn used to like cook and stuff, and so that turns out to be the Book of the White, and we have that cool scene with like the magic and then the binding of the bookmark or whatever, and it was cool. So then they find it, and then Izzy's like, oh, we gotta go, and so they're going, and Valentine walks in. Whoa, Valentine. And so he is like talking to Clary, and so Simon like goes after him like, stay away from her, and he pushes him aside, and Izzy like with her whip like to to grab Valentine's arm before he does something to Simon. I'm like, yes, protect him. And so this was the craziest part of the entire episode. I think this was the part where they were like, it's gonna get worse for everybody. And so Jace like comes and he's like, oh yeah, that I'm going to like finish you up, or whatever he said, running in. And Valentine's talking to him and he's like, yeah, like, you know, they weaken you and, you know, this love is weakness and all that stuff. And he's just getting into Jace's head. And I'm like, no, stop, because obviously Valentine still has a hold on Jace, and Jace, you know, doesn't want to believe him, but he does believe him. And so this was the biggest thing, because in the books, when at the end, the books end with at Renwick's, and then right after that happens, like Valentine and Clary and Jace are like talking for like 2 minutes, and so Valentine's like, yeah, come with me, come to Idris or whatever, and Jace doesn't go with him. He doesn't go through the portal to go with Valentine into Idris. That's what he does. He doesn't go. But in the show, they flipped it and he goes with him, and I was like, what are you doing? And this was so crazy for me because you know, they said that they would be changing things, right? And so I like this. I am super excited for what they're gonna like come up with. But I just thought it was so interesting because the ending, they didn't come up with something brand new. They didn't like come up with a whole new ending to the storyline. What they did is like, at the end of the book, Jace was faced with two decisions, to either go with Valentine or to not, and he chose to not. And so in the show, they literally just had him choose the other thing, and it's crazy. And so I'm like really excited to see where they're gonna go with that, because this is gonna be completely new to us. So we're probably gonna see a lot more Valentine. We're gonna see a lot more Valentine and Jace interactions. We're gonna get to see that abusive relationship with Valentine towards Jace, and I'm just like really excited for it. It was so sad when Jace, like, you can just tell on his face, he's like, if I go with you, you won't hurt my family. You won't hurt my friends. And so Valentine's like, yeah, sure. And so Jace, you can just, in his face, like, again with Dom with his sadness, it was so good. So before he leaves, he like is like telling Izzy and Alec, he's like, no, like, Alec, don't, like, do not, because he knows how much they love him. He knows that like his parabatai loves him. He knows his sister loves him. Izzy. And so his face, he was like, Alec, don't, seriously. And I'm just like, that's my feels. And then so when Clary, she's like, you're not serious, are you? She's like, Jace, seriously? And so like his face, it was like kind of in slow motion when Valentine grabs his hand and grabs his arm and takes him through the portal, and his face as he was like looking back at her, oh my god. And then she starts running towards him, and I really like this. It wasn't like dramatic and like whatever, it was like really sad and like heartbreaking, because she's like running towards him, and then Alex stops her, and like, I should not have been thinking about Alec and Clary's friendship at this moment, but that's what I was thinking of. And so as soon as it ends, she like, I really, really loved Kat's performance in this one scene. It was like my favorite of all of them that she's had, because it was really genuine and it was really sad, and I like wanted to cry. But she like, Alec is holding her and she's like, what are you doing? And he's like, saving your life, and da-da-da-da. And like her face was so sad. And then she like just hunches over into Alec and he like hugs her, and I'm like, wow, serious character development between this relationship. Oh my god. And I just absolutely loved that Alec like held her and comforted her, because I saw something on Tumblr afterwards, and it's like, these are the two people that love Alec the most. And Alec, you know, that's parabatai. He will live and die for Jace. Clary's, you know, falling in love with Jace. And so like, it's just the two people that are hurting the most right now because of Jace leaving. And it was just, ugh. And so after that happens, they go back to the Institute, and Hodge is being taken away to Idris, I imagine. So there's that scene between Clary and Simon, how Clary is like just very sad, and Simon is like trying to cheer her up, and she's like, not now. And then he's like, oh, I love you, Clary, and oh, I love you too, Simon. And so I'm like, oh god, is this the beginning of a Kleiman relationship? Like, I feel like they're definitely gonna do that in the next season. And I don't really, I mean, I'd rather they don't, but I feel like they have to, because I remember reading that in the books and just being like, ugh, this feels so wrong. And I'm like, I didn't really enjoy Clary and Simon as a couple. It just felt wrong to me, and so it's gonna probably feel that way when they do it in the next season. But I really don't think that it's going to last that long, because like, they know that we don't really want to see that, and they know that the writers know that, you know, they're not endgame with each other in the couple sense. Because so yeah, and then we cut to that scene with Magnus and Alec, and they're in that hallway again. So that was one thing. I'm like, they're bringing up this whole immortal thing like really fast, and at first I was like, no, we do not discuss this. This is something we don't discuss until later. But then I thought about it and I'm like, I'm really glad that they're bringing it up now, because Alec is smart. He you know, he's gonna figure out that Magnus, you know, is gonna live on while the rest of them die. And so so I'm really glad that they had this conversation, or they started to have this conversation now when they're like still very like attracted to each other but not in love, because I imagine that if they were to have this conversation when they actually were in love with each other, that it would be much more painful. So I'm glad that they're having it now, not to get it out of the way, but just to like start having this conversation, because even for us book readers, that hasn't been resolved yet. Like, Alec is still mortal, Magnus is still immortal, and it's just, that's something even in the books that hasn't been like resolved yet. And so like, it's just angst. And the way Magnus was like looking at Alec was so endearing, and he's like, Alexander, and I love it so much, and I can't wait to see more of them in the next season. I can't wait. And so Luke comes and he's like, oh, you know, everybody's ready. And so they go, and I love the scene with Magnus waking up Jocelyn. Like the whole spell he was saying was really cool, and he was like, dun, 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 and like she was like getting up. It was really cool. The song and the music, I really like that scene. Jocelyn wakes up, and Luke is there to grab her, and then she's like, Luke, and then they hug each other. I'm like, Luke and Jocelyn, I'm so excited to see more of them because I love them so much. Oh my goodness. And so then she turns to Clary and she's like, Mom, and then they hug, and I was like, I'm going to cry because that's so cute. And Clary's just like, oh, I just need my mom right now. And then I'm so excited for more Clary and her mom to have like interactions. I'm so excited for that. And so that was one thing, because Jocelyn doesn't wake up in City of Ashes. She wakes up in City of Glass because they find her in City of Bones. They don't know how to wake her up, and that's like the whole thing of, you know, City of Ashes. She's still asleep. I mean, they have her, but she's still asleep. And so she doesn't wake up until like the beginning of City of Glass, after they like find that Madeline person and everything. I looked up the plot, so like it's a little bit more fresh in my memory. And so I was actually really, really glad that they woke up Jocelyn so early, because, you know, just like with any, you know, story, like in all the Disney stories, if the mom was there, things would have not happened that didn't need to happen. So I'm glad that Jocelyn is awake so she can like tell everybody more truth and like answer some questions. And I'm just really excited for like a conversation between Jocelyn and Clary, and Jocelyn and Luke, Jocelyn with everybody, because I want to see what she has to say, and I just want Jocelyn awake to answer all these questions. So then that happens, Jocelyn is awake, and so the last scene that we get is with Valentine and Jace on that boat. And so the Valentine's talking, and I'm like, ugh. And so the camera goes to Jace's face, and he looks so like he does not want to be there. I'm like, Jace, oh my God, you are loved, my child. Go back to the Institute where they will love you. Like, you don't need to be there. And so I'm so sad for Jace, because Jace goes through so much, like in these books. He has like Jace is the one that has like the biggest existential like internal crisis with himself, and in all these books, out of all the characters, I think, because he goes from like Jace Wayland to Jace this, it's like all over the place. So this is the beginning of the very long Jace struggle that we are going to see. And I'm just very excited because, like I said, that didn't happen in the books. Jace didn't go with Valentine. But yeah, Valentine and Jace are on that boat, and I feel like that boat is going to come back. Like, that is some foreshadowing for probably the finale or something in the next season, because that's a big thing in the books, that whole boat. I feel like they're going to do something with that storyline. But yeah, it was really funny because I was watching that scene at the very end with the boat, and it was like going off, and it completely reminded me, like the way it was filmed, of this other, I think it was a movie. I couldn't like actually figure out what I was thinking of when I saw that. It reminded me of the scene like at the end of one of those Resident Evil movies with like the boat. I have no idea. It reminded me of something, but I could not put my finger on it. Yeah, as for like theories for next season, I honestly don't even know, because I know they said they were going to change even more things, which I'm super excited for, because they're just amazing with their storytelling in this world, with the writing and all that. It's amazing. And so I feel like Jocelyn waking up, I feel like they might tell Clary, maybe, I don't know, because then the whole Simon and Clary thing, I don't know, maybe I saw a theory that Valentine like did something to Jocelyn while she was asleep, because why else would he give her up to them if she was just gonna tell all of his secrets? Or so, I don't know, I feel like Jocelyn's gonna be awake, but there's going to be consequences to the fact that she's awake. Like she's gonna like her mind. There's gonna be something wrong with Jocelyn. Like it can't be that easy for her to just wake up. I know it was in the books, but like she was woken up a lot later, so they had to do things without her for longer. So that now that she's awake now, I feel like there's gonna be something else that's going to prevent Jocelyn from like telling everybody things. And so that's the only thing that I can think of now. That something is going to be wrong with Jocelyn, because this was like, wait, it was almost too easy. I feel like the Simon and Clary thing is going to happen. It might not last for as long, because I know that they said that Sizzy was going to be like introduced maybe like towards the end of the season. So I think Clary and Simon is going to happen, but it's not going to last that long. Okay, and I just saw something. Apparently season 2 is going to get 20 episodes. You guys, I am so excited. Oh my god, that means, okay, maybe we'll get it so that it like comes on in January, ends now, and it comes back in June. Yes, if that could happen, please. Oh my god. And apparently my online parabatai here is telling me that we will be seeing Maya and Will Herondale in the next season. You guys, my mind is being blown right now. I cannot. I'm still like super hopeful that like they mentioned it, and I cannot get it out of my head that they said that if Shadowhunters as well, that they might do an Infernal Devices show. Can you imagine? I cannot. Oh my god. Can you imagine a Will and a Tessa and a Gem, and it just, I can't. Oh my goodness. So that means that next season we're gonna get casting for Maya and maybe even Jordan, and you guys, I'm like hyperventilating. I can't. I'm so excited, and it's not coming back till next January. I cannot wait. They better like give us behind the scenes videos and pictures all this year. Like I need it. I know they're gonna start filming like soon. Like I don't know if it's now or in May or something. I don't know. But they need to give us pictures and videos and stuff, because I cannot handle like 9 months until the show comes back. I could have a child in the... Okay, that's a weird way to think of time, but it's way too far away. Okay, but yeah, that's basically... This video is probably really long. But I love this episode. It was a wonderful finale. It was a crazy ending with Jace going with Valentine, different from the books. Crazy sauce. I'm super excited for what they have in store for us. Like I've said, and I'm just, let me know if you have any theories for next season, like what you think is going to happen, because I know that the writers are probably most likely going to change a little bit more from everything. And just, yeah. So yeah, please leave all your comments down below. This has been a crazy first season. I've done videos for every episode and then some. You guys have been so... I've gotten like so many subscribers and views from doing these videos, and like I've online met so many of you, and you guys are so awesome, and I just so yeah, I will see all of you. I mean, I'm still going to make videos here and there until the show comes back. Probably like I want to do like a Walking Dead review for the season, probably like for the finale. I might do the Supernatural one. I keep saying that I will, but then I don't, because and I'm gonna do a whole bunch of book reviews, hopefully some tags up until then. But I will see all of you next year for my Shadowhunters season 2 episode 1 review and reaction, probably. Please comment down below. Again, thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video, whether it be a book review or if you want to just ignore me and watch until next year when the show comes back. So I will see you when I see you. Bye!